Okay, now that the rough forging is done and all of my other side projects are completed for now, I have this ready to grind to shape. Definitely want to make this have less of a belly there because these knives are actually pretty straight. And of course clean up the tang, make this shoulder a little less wonky and the tang just a little straighter. And then of course grind my flats, which fortunately I think I got pretty close, which is rare. Usually there's a little bit off, but small blades are pretty easy to hammer out compared to large machetes and swords. Okay, so now that I have everything sanded the way I want it, and before I go to normalize, heat treat, temper, all that stuff, make my handle, I'm gonna go ahead and thread the back of this. I made a stacked leather handle on a previous combat knife that I made. Maybe you've seen the video, maybe you haven't. Anyway, it was a Navy Mark I combat knife. Similar to these, but slightly different. It also had the stacked leather handle though. And I just use it, I just kind of hammered out the end of it like I do with most of my blades. However, I noticed with these stacked leather, it just kind of compressed it, making it very hard to actually accurately hammer it out. So I decided I'm gonna try threading it, and then just take the head of a bolt here and thread the other side of that. I'm just using 1/4 inch because it's kind of a good, small enough where it's not huge, but also big enough that is not a little pencil. Anyway, you go ahead and just thread it. Make sure it's well oiled. That should do it. Now that the blade is heat treated and tempered, I have this piece that's going to act as my guard. I already drilled these holes in it, 1/4 inch a piece. They're not the straightest, but once I get everything filed out, it should be fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my angle grinder, cut these open as best I can, file them to where they're straight, and just kind of fit them from there. Okay, so now that the guard is done, I'm gonna go ahead and make the pommel. I have the head of my bolt here clamped in, hole drilled in. It's 3/16, but I'd recommend something larger than that, but smaller than quarter because the threads are quarter inch. They're a quarter inch. Anyway, but I didn't have one because my drill bit broke, so I'm gonna have to kind of manually open this up with the tap, and hopefully my tap doesn't break. I've had those happen at work and it's not fun. But anyway, so I'm going to thread this so it can screw on the base of my knife. Okay, now that I have the blade etched the way I want it, my other parts also etched, and my leather all cut out. I basically just cut squares, cut rectangles instead squares to fit over the tang, and I've got a bunch of them. Now I'm going to take that whole bunch with a bunch of JB Weld, glue it to the tang and to each other, and then screw the pommel on. This is going to be a while. This is also why I cry at night, when I go to sleep. Every night. It's a process. Before I started. Okay, so now that everything is glued together, it's well, it's hard to hold. Very large, very pointed edges. So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take my box cutter, shave off the edges. Then once I'm done with the box cutter, I'm gonna go to my farrier's file, which is buried under all that crap. I'm a very messy worker. It bothers a lot of people. But no one comes into my shop, at least none that make it out. Anyway, not important. But then once I'm done filing, I'm just gonna finish up with my belt sander. And then with this belt sanded, I'm going to dye it and seal it. I'm probably gonna go for a black dye just because I think with a dark handle and everything being etched, I think black's gonna look the best. Oh, before I forget, I put a little bit of epoxy on the threads of that, so that way it doesn't come undone. So, you know, you can't unscrew the pommel and throw it at your enemies, but I wouldn't recommend doing that with a combat knife anyway. That's more of a, you know, medieval sword thing. Or just carry rocks. Rocks are always fun. Don't throw rocks, you know, unless it's like self-defense. You can throw rocks in self-defense. That's allowed. I give you permission to defend yourself by throwing rocks. Okay, so now that I have the handle dyed and sealed, I think it looks pretty nice. Not quite your typical K-bar, but I'd say it's pretty close in general setup. I forgot to put the, I always refer to it as the blood groove in it. I realized this as I was in the process of heat treating it, that it wasn't there. And I'd already had my mark engraved about where part of it was going to be. I'm like, well, I doubt this knife is going to be used for anything that's actually going to need one of those, so I decided just to leave it out. And so, you know, this isn't, got some over words here. This isn't supposed to be the real thing. It's just supposed to be kind of based on, so that's going to be my justification. But anyway, you basically got to finish, just got to sharpen it up a bit, because it's pretty dull. I mean, it would hurt. You could stab it into something. You could probably cut something, putting a force into it, but it's not going to be very good at it until I sharpen it. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed, and now that this is finished, I'm going to go flex on my brother for having a better handmade combat knife than he does. Although, to be fair, the handmade combat knife he has is one that I made like 3 years ago. So I guess I'm sort of flexing on myself there. Oh well.